All right, welcome back. We are Game 2014 in the fall 2020 semester at George Brown, and it's Mobile Game Development 1, Week 1. All right, so if you don't know me already, this is me. I'm Tom. I'll be your instructor for this semester. You can reach me at that funny email address, tommy.celiopoulos, but please call me Tom. Tommy, I don't know where they got that from, but that's okay. What I wanted to talk about today was a couple things. First, welcome back. This might be your first day back at George Brown from the long break that some of you have had over the summer. We've gone through a lot since the beginning of the summer, before the beginning of the summer with COVID and distance learning. And I wanted to welcome you back to say that I know you've made it somehow. Throughout all the difficulties and the challenges, you're here. Right, and we're going to work together so that way you can have the next 2 semesters be successful for you here at George Brown. So welcome back. That's the first message. The second thing is that some things are going to change because of remote learning, and one of them is the fact that we're going to be doing this distance stuff. I'm going to be using synchronous and asynchronous delivery for you. So synchronously, I'm going to make this video for you during your time frame. So from 12 to 3 every Tuesday, right? I'm going to make a video for you that you can see, you can watch over again or whatever. That'll be the asynchronous part. So if you want to watch this later on, the synchronous part is me being up on Zoom, and you can interact with me live, right? We can also set up sessions if you need a one-on-one. I'm going to make myself available through office hours, kind of by request. You can reach me on Discord as well, and if you reach me on Discord and say, hey Tom, I need to kind of do a one-on-one with you, when are you available this week? I'll make myself available for you guys, okay? It's not a problem. If you need help with technical issues, or if you just want to have a virtual coffee, okay? Let's do this stuff. Let's stay connected this semester so we can all be successful. Next part, I want to talk about our outline a little bit. So our outline, in terms of what we're going to be doing, obviously we're going to be talking about mobile development. Previously this course was called Android development, but we're not going to be doing Android development exclusively in this course this semester. And I'll talk about the evolution of this course a little bit in a second. But first, this is how we're going to do our evaluations for this course. This is in your outline anyway, but I'm just going to go over it with you. First, there's going to be some lab exercises, and the total grade for the lab exercise is going to be 10%. Over all the lab exercises. You may have more than 10 or less than 10, but overall, all the lab exercises will be worth 10% total. There'll be 2 assignments broken down into 2 parts. So you'll have assignment part 1, assignment 1 part 2, assignment 2 part 1, assignment 2 part 2. All assignments in this course are individual. So you're not going to combine with anyone else. You're not going to group up or peer program or anything like that with anyone. It's you and you alone at this point. This is your 3rd year, and the expectation is that you should be able to program and understand the concepts that we're talking about together, and you're on your own. There's nothing wrong with connecting with other people that you know and bouncing ideas off of them, but from a delivery perspective, you're going to be in charge of your own assignment delivery. So your assignment is your own. There are going to be 2 theoretical tests and 2 practical tests during this semester. All right, so let's talk about when they're going to happen. The first theoretical test is going to happen 3 short weeks from now in week 4. It's just going to be a true-false multiple choice test based on the theory, the stuff we're talking about from a design perspective for mobile, the mobile marketplace, the mobile user story, personas, all that kind of stuff is going to be on your first test. It's going to be true-false multiple choice. You'll have the entire week to do it. So you'll get it, let's say, on Monday, approximately, and then by Friday you have to get it done. You'll have 2 attempts. Everyone will get 2 attempts to get it done, which will allow you to, if you have a technical issue or whatever, you can go through and get your test done. So that's your theoretical test. The first one's on the 4th week. Then shortly after that, we're going to have a practical test that we hit on week 7. That's during midterm time. And the practical test, you're actually going to have, again, you're going to get it on Monday, and you're going to hand it in by Friday. So there's not going to be any timed tests. I'm not going to sit there and watch you do your test. You're going to go away. You're going to do your test, whether it's theoretical or practical. You're going to get it on Monday, get it done on a Friday. For your practical test, there is no second chance. You can submit it as many times as you want, But as soon as it goes by the Friday at midnight, there are no extensions, right? Think about this as a test. That's the whole week. You have the whole week to do. But there are no extensions unless there's some extraneous circumstances like a medical problem or something else that would affect any other exam, right? It's the same thing for these tests. These tests have to be done within the time frame I've given you. Okay, so they're not like assignments where, sometimes we ask for extensions on assignments, and that's different. Assignments are there for you to research and get more information and dig deeper a little bit on how the concepts work on your own, and then produce the assignment, which is based on the coursework that we're talking about. That's not this. Tests and practical tests are not like that at all. You're given a time frame, and you're supposed to do your test in the time frame. All right, so that's your evaluations. We're going to go more into evaluations. There's another piece to the evaluations that we're going to be talking about today as well. So we're sitting right now at week 1. Today we're going to be talking at a very high level about mobile game development, the marketplace, and a few other things. For example, mobile operating systems, the advantage of Android or iOS, one over the other, as an example, those kind of things. And then we'll be doing in the second half a setup of Unity 2020, which is the latest version we're going to use, in addition to other tools I want you to download for Unity, and another tool called Genymotion. So those two tools we're going to be downloading and setting up today. So by the end of the week, you should have those running. So by next week, when we get together, we can do our first lab. That's the desired outcome for today. Next week, we're going to be talking more about game design specifically for mobile. The mobile user story, like why do people play games on mobile, and what kind of games should you design for mobile, and what kind of games should you not design for mobile, and who is your audience, and that kind of stuff. That's going to come next week. You're also going to get assignment 1, part 1, and like I said, the two assignments, the way they work are, you're going to get part 1. Part 1 is going to be due in a couple weeks, so you get till week 4 to do it, and it's really going to be a design assignment, and it's also going to allow you to create your user interface for your game. And we're going to be talking about this, how a lot of times what we want to do is create user interfaces first, and then after we create the user interface, we want to fill out the logic behind the user interface as much as possible. So that's what's going to happen over the course of the first half of semester. Okay. I also have to mention that, and I'm just going to pause here at week 2, that side by each with this, you have another course, another game engines course that you have with Professor Joss. He is going to go over the details with you about your Unity. He's going to do a Unity tour with you, a user interface tour, all that kind of stuff this week when you meet with him. And both of us are talking about 2D for Unity. Okay, so anything 3D for Unity is going to be done next semester. There's going to be a second part of the engines course, and there's going to be a second part of this mobile development course, right? Mobile development part 2. So that's what's happening. So this is all in 2D that we're working on this semester, which is going to make you great 2D developers, and there's a good market for that, especially for mobile. All right, so third week we're going to talk about making our first mobile interface that's workable in Unity just before the interface is going to be due the following week. Okay, we're talking about adaptive layouts on week 4. So again, how does a device adapt to different layouts, or an app adapt to different device layouts? As an example, how does it do that, and how do we enable that in Unity? As well, you'll have your first tests that'll be given to you on the Monday of week 4, and you'll have until the Friday of week 4 to get it done. Okay, so that's the first 4 weeks of class. And then we're going to get into optimization for mobile, everything from making optimized textures, optimizing memory utilization, because your hardware is limited when it comes to mobile compared to other devices. And then we're going to talk about simple animations and so on, and touch input by week 7. And then in week 7, you're also going to have your first practical test, which is going to be due by the end of the week. So that covers us for the first half of semester. Second half of semester, what we're going to be doing is talking about physics with Unity, rigid body physics. We're going to get assignment 2 right away when you get back from break on week 9. You'll have basically what you're making in the second half is a platformer for mobile. All right, and we're also going to have a little bit of AI requirements for this one. I'm going to ask you to do some AI. So you've already been taught how to do some AI, and we'll go over it again, a review. Joss will also ask you to do AI for his engines course, right? So you're going to get AI a couple of times. So AI and physics, you're going to apply some of the stuff that you've learned in the other courses that you've taken up until now and apply them in your assignments coming forward, okay? And then again, by week 12, you'll have a test on theory test for platforming, specifically for mobile. What's good, what's bad, what do we recommend, best practices, that kind of stuff. Again, it'll be true, false, multiple choice. You'll have the whole week. And then on week 15, you're going to have your final test. We'll do a bit of a review. There probably will not be a final lecture during that period. I'll give you a chance to do your test, and I'll hold office hours typically at the last week of class to make sure that you understand stuff. I can actually answer your questions, give you any feedback that's missing, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so that's how the course is laid out. Now, any questions? If you want to ask it on the chat, you can ask any questions that you might have, or if you're brave, you can put your hand up and talk live on YouTube, whichever one you want. Amar, you're brave. Go, Amar. Talk.
For the weeks that we have the tests and whatnot,
yep.
Do we still have lectures during those weeks?
Yes. Yeah. So you'll be doing it on your own time. Whenever you feel like doing you think that's a good question. Whenever you feel like doing your tests, you do it. You have the entire week to do it, as an example, so you can do it on your own time, right? Typically this way you're not feeling pressured. I don't want to pressure you to do it. I will make myself available, obviously, if there's issues throughout the entire week. So if you have a technical problem or if you need something explained or whatever, I'll make myself available through both Discord and other means to make sure that you guys are okay, right? I'm not going to leave you to the dog, say, hey, Mark, go, and then see you later, right? It's more like, okay, go do your test, and if you have problems, come talk to me, and we'll work it out, right? So that's how we'll do it. I also will go and review what you should be doing on the test during our time together during that week. Hopefully that answers your question. Any other questions around tests or assignments? Thanks, Amar. Awesome. All right, so let's continue on with the next part. So we talked about the first half and the second half, the evaluations. One thing I got to talk about that's different this semester than in other semesters is assignment videos. And this is a point of consternation for some students where I asked them to make a video. I've done it all through the summer semester where I said, okay, guys, make a little video and I want you to explain how your stuff works. So why is this? People have consternation because they're like, you know what? My voice is terrible. And I'm not a video producer. And I don't know how to make videos. And what I'm going to tell you is, don't worry about being a video producer. You're not a videographer. I don't expect that. I expect you to make a short video that's going to be basically discussing the app that you're making for me. It's going to be required, so the video is mandatory. It means I'm not going to accept your assignments without a video that basically explains who you are, what you've made, what you know, all that kind of stuff. Okay, it's going to be required. Now, the tools to make the video, it could be any tool you want. All I need from you is I don't need you to record your face. I need you to record two things, your screen and your voice. If I can see the screen and I can hear your voice, I'm good to go. That's all I need. It doesn't have to be professional. It could be a rough cut, literally, of you doing something with OBS. I recommend OBS. And for OBS, if you don't know what that is, you can go to this website, Open Broadcaster Software, right, and download it. It's a free download. It's so there's nothing for you to do. It's quite easy to learn. And the way it works is you can, using the plus button down here in your sources for each scene, you can add layers, that layers on top of the stuff that you're recording. Now, obviously, it would help if you have more than one monitor. If you have a laptop, then you would have to switch between your recording software and your screen. And sometimes you might capture a bit of your recording software in your screen, and that's okay. Again, I don't expect you to be professional videographers here at all. Nor do I expect you to show your face like a talking head as I'm doing right now on YouTube. You don't need to do that. None of that stuff. I don't need a green screen. I don't need any of that. I can hear you. I can see your screen. I can see you moving your stuff around. I'm good. Right? So that's what I'd like you to do. So after you make your video, you can screen record with any software. Like I said, you don't have to use Open Broadcaster software, OBS. You can use whatever software you want, whatever makes sense for you, Camtasia or other streaming software, whatever you want. Then you put it up on YouTube or another provider. You can use YouTube, Twitch, whatever. I recommend making it unlisted if you're not comfortable putting yourself or recording yourself at all. Right, making it unlisted and give me the link. All right, you can also make it private, but if you make it private, whether it's on YouTube or somewhere else, you need to give me the password. If I don't have the password and I can't access your video, I will not mark your assignment. Just letting you know. Okay, so please make sure you get that done and practice. It doesn't have to be super professional. Okay, like I said. So what am I looking for from your video? What I'm looking for is the following. You're going to make a short PowerPoint presentation, one slide. It could be a Google slide or PowerPoint, one slide. The slide should have an image of you. So this is me, right? As an example, a current image. It could be a very simple headshot. I don't need anything else. It could be something that's shot from your phone. It doesn't have to be professional. As long as it's not skewed and it looks like you, I'm good. So no avatars allowed. Again, this is from an academic integrity perspective. This is you, okay? And then once you show me your image, you're going to have your full name, your student ID, the course code, the course name, and your assignment information. That's all going to be on that one title slide. That could be just white. Okay, it's totally fine to make it white. You don't have to color it. You don't have to make it your own if you don't want to. I mean, obviously, if you want to be creative, you can be as creative here as you like. And I've had many creative submissions over the summer. Lots of fun watching those. And then you're going to demonstrate your app's functionality in the simulator, because we're going to have a simulator that you're going to demonstrate on, okay? So show me how your app works. Show me that it does work, that it doesn't error out or anything like that, okay? So that's what you're going to be doing. You can also show me sometimes, some people that like to show me their app on their phone. They can actually broadcast their phone or, stream their phone to their computer. There's ways of doing that. And so on. As long as you capture a device that's running your app, that it's your app that you're running, I'm good to go. Right? That's the first part. So that's the first thing. Hey, here's my app. It's working. Look, I'm touching it here. It's working. It's doing what it's supposed to do. The next part is, tell me about your design choices. Why did you make your app the way you did? Right? And then finally, show me your code and talk about, hey, you know what? I use this code from class. I use this code from Stack Overflow. Here's what it does. As an example, it makes this app do this. And you should understand all the code that's inside of your app for the most part. And as we get closer to the first submission, we'll go over this stuff again to make sure you're clear on everything that I'm looking for. Again, I'm not trying to be difficult here. It's just that I need to hear that it's your stuff. I want to see that it's from you. Okay, a couple things you're going to be rated on. So not only is it mandatory, but you're also going to get marks. Up to 10% of each of your assignments is going to be this video requirement. Think about it as a video lab report. That's what it is, right? And what you're going to have is two things that I need to hear. I need to be able to clearly hear you. So if your sound is out of whack, the video is useless to me, right? If I can't see your screen, clearly see the pixels on your screen that make up your text as an example, and the stuff that's on your screen, that's also useless. If I can't see what you're doing, if it's completely fuzzy or something. So please make sure that before you upload the video or even submit the video link, that I can hear you and see what you're doing, okay? And the other thing is, try and make it, and this is a big order, tall order, because the first time you're going to do this, we're not skilled at making videos. Try and stay within around 5 minutes, okay? I'm not going to be super strict on this point, but if it's something like 20 minutes or half an hour, guys, TLDR, I'm going to go scroll right through the video till the end until I want to see the stuff I want to see. Can you upload it to Google Drive? Is what I'm getting as a question. The answer is yes, but I need to be able to click on it and make it work. Please don't make me download it. If your video is 200 megabytes, Harrison, and I got to download 40 videos, please don't do that to me. I'd rather just click on it and run it from a streaming service like YouTube. Okay? So make it easy, please. That's what I would ask. Any questions or concerns around the video? I'm looking at the chat now. You don't have to say it, or you can always put up your hand if you want to speak out loud if you're a brave soul. And I got some brave souls, I see. Yeah? I see Kat. See, I was going to say Kat. I said, I have a brave soul. She's going to speak up for sure. I was waiting for you to say something. Go ahead, Kat. Say it for everybody. Go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back.
All right.
Welcome back to listening to me talk all semester. How short can it be? Can I make a 1-minute video? Talk very fast.
I mean, if it makes sense. You know, I'm not sure you'll be able to cover everything in 1 minute, but if you can cover everything within a minute or two, I'm okay with it.
Okay,
just
so no cut-off.
No, gauge it like that. Gauge it like, you know, if I need to make it 6 minutes, then Tom is going to be okay with 6 minutes or 4 minutes or 3 minutes. As long as it covers what I've asked you to cover, I'm good to go. But if you make it half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour, no.
There is no danger of me doing that.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But some people make, you know, they like to, you know, tell a story, right? So all I'm saying is keep your story short. Thanks.
Oh.
All right. Thanks, Kat. All right. Anyone else have any questions around the video stuff? By the way, the video will be required for all your assignments as well as your practical tests. All right. So that means in week 7, when you have your first practical test, there'll be a video component. Why? You have the whole week to do it, right? So you need to schedule your time and manage your time well so that the last thing that you do after you have a pretty good app that I've asked you to build, you make a small video, again, showing off your stuff. Guys, don't be stressed out about it. After you've done it a few times this semester, if you haven't had a chance to do it ever before, you're going to be perfect at it. Alex, talk to me. Alex, I'm so sorry, but you're cutting off. Yeah, it's really hard to hear you. Maybe you have a mic issue.
She said, does everything have to be done in that order? Or can you do it in any order?
What do you mean by that?
Can I play my app's code first? And
Yeah.
functionality?
Yeah. You know, that's all. I'm going to leave, of course. I'm going to give you creative license, Kat. You can do things in any order you like. This is not I'm not trying to be draconic here in any way to limit you guys. You can totally switch up the order, make it your own, make it exciting, you know, make it fun for you. You know, as long as I get what I'm looking for, I'm good. It doesn't matter to me, right? Although I think the title slide should probably be the first thing you show me. Like, hi, my name is Tom, and, you know, this kind of stuff. But from other than that, then, you know, sorry, Alex, I just couldn't hear you. You were breaking up there for me. Okay, any other questions around the video? Nasara, is that you know, you're not happy with the video, Nasara, or is that like you're okay? Bohan, why don't you come up and talk? Go ahead.
So, do you want the object to be uploaded as well?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, of course there will be other requirements. So you thank you for that. So I mean, I'm just telling you about the special requirement, which is the video. But absolutely, there'll be other requirements as well. I will have things like perhaps GitHub. You may have also other things like your a WebGL build for the Unity stuff that you're going to make. There'll be other things because obviously if one thing fails, then I want to have a backup with the other thing. So yes, there'll be multiple links and things you'll have to submit. Absolutely. Okay. I miss you too, Kat. All right. Let's get going with anything else. Anyone else have any other questions around video evaluations, the course outline, or anything else we presented here so far? All right, let's continue. So again, super excited about seeing your submissions. I know that during the summer, I can tell you that when I ran some of the courses I ran in the summer, there was a lot of them that I had some great submissions. And I also had some really poor submissions. And I don't mean the quality of the code or anything else. I'm talking about, like, I could not for the life of me hear the person on the video, or it was breaking up, or the quality of the screen was impossible to see, and those kind of things. And it just makes things more difficult, right? So try your best, you know, prepare yourself to do it. Think about it as, again, as a live report. I think it's a great exercise for you, like an oral exam. in many ways, like the old school oral exams when the professor would ask you, so tell me about what you did, and then you explain your code. At the same time, I think it prepares you for this, remotely connected world in COVID-19 where you do an interview remotely and talking about your code. And also, kind of makes you practice making videos, which I think is going to be something we're going to be doing, not just this semester, but in semesters to come. So, all right. Yay, she's not mad yet. Okay, so let's continue. So what are we doing today? So beyond the video and the evaluation and all that stuff. So I talked about the course outline and the video demonstration requirement details. And now I'm going to do a bit of an intro to mobile development. We're going to be talking about mobile operating systems, hardware limitations of mobile. Hey, what about that Nintendo Switch anyway? And then finally we're going to do in the second half, we're going to do some technical work where we download and install Unity. I'm going to show you what to do with this. There's a couple of other packages I need you to install, as well as a brief Unity interface. Again, Professor Joss will be covering Unity in way more detail than me because we're doing it side by side. We're doing this course for Unity Mobile, and we're doing Joss's course for Unity Desktop. All right, so kind of hitting it in from different angles, and by the end of this semester, you'll be very, very well versed in at least the beginnings of being a Unity developer. Okay, so that is what we're doing. One thing to note before we move on is this course used to be called, like I said, Android Development. And so Alex and I got together at the beginning of semester and we said, look, way earlier than the beginning of semester, we said, look, you know what? This isn't going to work. And not just this course, but the next course. This course was supposed to be Android, and the next course was supposed to be iOS. And in a regular semester, when we don't do distance learning, you would have access to devices and a Mac and a bunch of other stuff that we don't have access to right now, the labs basically. And so to alleviate this, and also for the fact that mobile development has changed over the years, and this is kind of my intro as well, mobile development was originally, a lot of people did things native, right? Because, they have their device, they wanted to develop for a particular device, and that's fantastic. But that's a very expensive way of doing things, and we'll talk about how we can do things less expensive than how it was done before. So think about this. I'm going to present this user scenario to you. You have a game idea, and you're an indie developer, and you want to make a game for the Android platform, and so you make it. You kick off Java, which is the language for Android. You use libgdx, let's say, or even C++. And some other framework, and you create your game, and it's a beautiful game. And then, someone on the Apple side says, I would love to have this game, right? Because it's an awesome game. It's great for Android. What do you got to do? Recreate everything from scratch, pretty much. There's some code you can keep because it's very similar, but for the most part, all the user interface stuff, all the interactions for the user, everything has to be revamped. The user interface, the way the device responds, the entire thing has to be rebuilt, again, from scratch. So now you're building your app twice. And let's suppose, as an example, that you also want to develop for the web. You want to make a web game. Same game, let's say Angry Birds. You want to play Angry Birds on Android, on iOS devices, on the web, on Xbox, on PS4, whatever, and new devices like the Switch, right, as an example. What you can do with Unity or a game engine or Unreal, as an example, is code once, deploy everywhere, which is something that we've talked about before in other classes. So this is the new user scenario. So when we talked about this with Alex, we said, look, it makes sense now, since we're remote, that we make a Unity course. And the Unity course will cover both iOS and Android in the first half. This is what we're going to be doing this semester, right? And in the second half, we're going to add additional functionality. For example, maybe we will extend it to do 3D, which is what's going to happen in your game engines part 2 of Unity, right? You're going to be doing 3D development. We're going to be doing 3D development because there's a lot of call for 3D games on the mobile space. And maybe, and this is where I really want to go, Switch development, because really, from a mobile development perspective, isn't the Switch a new kind of use case, right? It's a new device. We're going to talk about that and kind of the blocks that we're getting into for how we can make that happen, if it's possible. So let's talk about operating systems for a bit. Android, Linux-based operating system. It's open source. It was released in 2007 by a company called the Android Corporation, bought by Google. One of its great acquisitions, if you will. And Google, opened it up and they said, look, you know what? You can use Android as an open source operating system to deploy on any device that's compatible, right? And as a result, today, Android powers not just millions of devices, but also CarPlay. It also has, you can see Android inside virtual reality devices like the Oculus Quest and a bunch of other devices, so which is pretty cool. Are we going to be pushing, sorry, I'm seeing the chat here. Are we going to be pushing to publish from Unity to the Play Store and App Store? Maybe not this semester, but possibly next semester. It really depends. We have to get, there's a school account we can use to do this, and I'd like to do that. It'd be awesome if we can push to the Google Play Store or Amazon Play Store or the App Store, the Apple App Store. But for the Apple App Store, you need to have a Mac, and there's no other way to do that. Anyways, let me go back to this. So Android was open source, and hundreds of millions of devices started using it. So advantages, again, are lots of community support, tons of community support. And because of this, Android is on tons of devices, right? Really pushing the boundaries of mobile hardware and software because, I mean, it's really pervasive. Like Android is everywhere if you look at it. Android is even on things like the Raspberry Pi. You can put Android in all kinds of different devices, micro devices as well. Some of the disadvantages are Android's everywhere, and guess what? You have different viewports that you have to manage, and so that's a disadvantage, right? It's also, you don't know what operating system is going to run on that, or version of the operating system of Android is going to run on that device. And that means that some of the apps that we make will not be compatible with some devices. You don't know how many devices they're going to be compatible with because you don't know what device the consumer is going to have, which means you may not be able to get to every user kind of homogeneously. And porting to different specific hardware is time and resource intensive because you need to be able to test physically with that hardware. So one of the things is we can test with a simulator, but one of the things that the common way we talk when we do mobile development is, good on a simulator is one thing. It's almost the Luke Skywalker thing. Good with remotes was one thing. Good with the real thing, that's something else. It's true. It's something else when you're actually using a real device because it might work with a simulator, but then it might break on your device. So you're going to have a testing facility where you can have multiple devices that you can access. And most indie companies, it's hard to have that, that test bed of devices that cover most Android devices. There's a lot of them out there. By the way, it's the same with iOS, but maybe a little bit easier because iOS, when iOS is updated, here's the common scenario for iOS. Most people update. If they have an iPhone, they go to the latest version. They don't hold back. Whereas some people, aren't motivated to upgrade from an Android device perspective. So there's less adoption of the new operating systems. And some of the new devices only support the newer operating systems compared to some of the old devices just can't get there for Android, similar to iOS. There's a couple of stores that we should know about. Again, this is assuming you don't know anything about Android, or if you're an iOS user. Google Play, premier marketplace to sell and distribute Android apps, right? 25 billion apps have been downloaded from the Google Play marketplace. It says around 1.5 billion per month. I think it's even bigger than this right now, especially now during COVID. It does give complete freedom to its users to define when and what to publish, and it's cheap. $25 one-time fee, and you can deploy to the Google Play Store, right? There isn't a check. There isn't a balance, and that's a positive and negative. I can make apps on the Google Play Store anytime I want, and it's cheap, okay? And you can make any types of apps, apps that have different price points, in-app purchases, subscriptions, whatever I want, okay? Will we need an actual device to test during the course? I'm going to try and get around that, Michael. Okay, and I have an idea for that, which I'm going to show you today. So again, think about this. As of the first quarter of 2020, Android users were able to choose between 2.56 million apps, making the Google Play Store, the App Store, the biggest app store there is, bigger than iOS, by far, right? Okay, and one thing to note is that the main language for Android development, native Android development, is Java. Now up and coming is another language called Kotlin. So those two languages, Java and Kotlin, are two of the languages that are being used for Android development. All right, with the SDK. Kotlin, by the way, this new language that has been developed by the same people who developed Android Studio, JetBrains. That language came to be because of there's been a kind of a battle between Oracle, that owns Java, and Google. Oracle kind of went to Google and said, listen, we want to get paid for Java, right? And Google said, wait, the people who owned Java before, the community, they said we can use Java for free going forward, forever. And Oracle said, show me this communication, this agreement you made with these previous people. And they only have an email that says you can use Java going forward, or something like that, something really flimsy. So Oracle's been pressuring Google for a long time to move away from using Java for Android. And so what they've done is they've made, through this company that made Android Studio, JetBrains, a declarative language, a little bit higher level, called Kotlin, with a K, that is now becoming more and more prevalent in Android development. As well, you can always use the NDK, right? Which is the native development kit that allows you to program in C and C++. So for us, sometimes it's a better choice. We can use OpenGLES to program games directly on the hardware. There's positives and negatives to this. Obviously, a lower level language like C++ is more involved and takes a lot longer to develop. Okay. Android Studio now is the IDE of choice for native Android development. Before, it used to be Eclipse. That was the older version of the development environment. Android Studio is a great IDE. It's evolved over the years. It started off pretty rocky, and it kind of was created by these people who made IntelliJ IDEA, JetBrains. And over the years, it's gotten better and better. Is it as good as Visual Studio is? No, in my opinion, Visual Studio is still probably the #1 tool for development. Microsoft is a great tools company, and Visual Studio Code is probably the #1 web development tool that's out there right now too, right? So, but does Microsoft have good tools for Java and Android? No. I think, you're going to go with Android Studio for that. I think that's the way to go, if you're going to go native. But the other way to do it, like we just talked about, is Unity 3D and Unreal Engine. Code once, deploy everywhere, which I think is going to be the new scenario as we go forward, as you'll see. From an iOS perspective, again, it was made in 2007. It was made specifically for the iPod Touch way back, and then it was ported to the iPhone and iPad. One thing that's different than Apple is it's not open source. You can only put iOS on Apple devices. So non-Apple devices, it's a no-go, right? And this has been Apple's philosophy pretty much from the beginning. They're more of a proprietary company. And that's why some people don't like to use Apple devices. They're proprietary. They're not open source. You pay for the device, but you can't really put any operating system you want on it. Apple's very specific about its use case and your user agreements when you buy the devices. And some people don't like to be controlled like that. From a marketplace perspective, iPhone is ranked 3rd in the global smartphone market. And what this means is you have the first #1 in the market is Samsung. That was number 1, followed by Huawei. That's #2. And then finally, Apple is #3. Since 2001, because of iPhones, Apple stocks have risen by 15,000%, reaching $1 trillion this year, right? Apple generated a whopping $260 billion in revenue during 2019. And they laid claim, like it says here, to 87% of all smartphone profits in 2018, but only holding 18% of sales because their phones are expensive. They're very expensive, right? And they say 2.2 billion phones have been sold since production began. And iPhone sales are responsible for more than half of the total revenue generated by Apple for Apple. And a good example is Apple made over $142 billion from iPhone sales alone in 2019. And as of the first quarter of 2020, Apple's App Store was the second largest app store, followed by Windows Store, and then Amazon App Store at the bottom. So this is the graph, okay, Statistica. And so it kind of tells a story here. Even though Google Play has more apps, Apple apps make more money. And there's a reason for this. There's controls, right? The controls, you can download a Google app and it's not going to be that great. Although you can get your app out to Google. For Apple has a different philosophy about stuff. They have human interface guidelines and they focus a lot on UI UX. Their primary objective is to make the most beautiful phones and the most beautiful interfaces, and the interface that make most sense for human touch. And that requires an adherence to different rules that that Android doesn't really care so much about. I mean, sure, they have their factors and their standards, but getting an app approved by Apple when you put it up on the App Store is tough, right, traditionally. And many times they get rejected a couple times before it gets accepted, right? And so there's been schemes over the years about how to get your app accepted on the App Store. A good example in the Indian marketplace, I have a friend of mine who owns a company called Game2014 here in Toronto. And he was telling me about how some developers, what they do is they submit a asset flip of the same exact app 7 or 8 times in the Indian marketplace. It's the exact same application, the exact same game, but they just keep on submitting it. One of those 7 or 8 apps is going to get approved by a human agent. Now, Apple recently has cracked down on this behavior, but that was the case for many years because you had this stringent approach to acceptance by Apple. To become an Apple developer is not easy, and it's expensive. It's $99 per year, not just the one-time $25 fee that you'd pay for the Google Play Store. You're going to pay $99 every year for each platform. I want to develop iPhones, $99. I want to develop on my Mac OS, $99, right? And that can be quite costly for some people, especially if you never generate an app, right? So you've worked on it for a year and you've been developing it, and then you submit it to the App Store and it gets rejected and it's never gone on the App Store. You've paid your $99 and everything else. By the way, that's $99 US, right? And it's expensive for some indie developers, even that, right? The programming language of choice for Apple developers is Swift. That was developed in 2014. Before that, it was Objective-C and C++. That was kind of the language they use. One thing that Apple does differently than Android is, for Android native development, you'd have to use something like libgdx or OpenGLES, right? Whereas on the Apple ecosystem side, they have a ton of frameworks. You want to build a 2D game? Use SpriteKit. You want to build a 3D game? Use SceneKit. You want to build an AR application? Use ARKit. There's a ton of stuff that they give you from the get-go, and their support, when you pay that $99, is phenomenal. They will respond to you. They will help you develop stuff. They will give you feedback. They do respond. It's not like how you connect and you never get any help. Especially from an Android perspective, they're pretty responsive too, but there's a lot more submissions for Android than there are for iOS. So it's a little bit less responsive. From an Xcode perspective, the Xcode IDE is, I would say, just as good as Android in its different ways. Android Studio, I mean. It's gone through an evolution as well. In the beginning, when I first programmed with Xcode, it was 2 different tools. We'd have Xcode and Interface Builder, right? And Interface Builder would be a separate tool, and sometimes it wouldn't work. And then eventually they moved into this one unified platform, Xcode, that supports all devices, as well as native Mac development, which is kind of good. It includes frameworks like Cocoa Touch for Mac development, as well as the Foundation framework. So lots of really good stuff there. one thing to note is if you're developing natively for iOS, you must own a Mac or have access to a Mac. There is no way to develop on Windows and deploy it on Mac or iOS. There is no way, right? Why? Again, going back to that whole proprietary way that Apple thinks. You want to develop on our devices, you got to own our devices, you got to own our platforms. And that makes it so the barrier to entry for being a native iOS developer is considerably higher than a Android user. Why? I can buy a very low-end laptop. I can download Android Studio. I can simulate everything, pay $25 on the game on the Google Play Store, and I'm good to go, right? For a Mac or to develop on iOS, I have to buy a pretty expensive low-end laptop for a Mac. We're talking about at least $1,500 to $2,000 to be able to run Xcode properly. Then I have to buy an expensive iPhone and pay $99 a year to develop on that platform. So there's a great barrier to entry. And you might say, but why do they do that? Well, they do that because they want to control the market. They want to charge 35%. To the people that supply apps on their app store. And so hence the fight between Epic and the whole Fortnite fight. Fortnite app got removed from the Google, from the App Store because it violated their agreements. It got approved and then they changed something. Every time the app changes, Apple's in there to approve it again, right? And what's happened is this time they didn't, and they're into this conflict that they're in right now. And there's less people playing Fortnite on Apple devices now as a result. So I'm just trying to lay out the framework for you, the landscape from a development perspective. So think about native development, right? One of the advantages that some developers will tell you is it's faster, it's better, you have more control, you have the ability to control everything up to the hardware. It's true, but guess what? Unity has become, and Unreal has become so good and so efficient in their compilation process that really you're programming at the end of the day, it's C++ code and machine code that's going to be uploaded to your device anyway. So performance is going to be very close, okay? If not sometimes better because of how much optimized the build can be. And you also have access to the build if you want to tweak the build afterwards, after you create a build with Unity, you can go into your native tools like Android and Xcode, Android Studio and Xcode, and tweak some settings in order for it to be even better. Okay, so this is, like I said, as we're going, things are changing, and it's going more towards, cross-platform development than native development. Hardware limitations. All that being said, we reached the point where machines like desktop machines are pretty good. They're pretty powerful, but they have limitations too. A desktop like mine, for example, I had to upgrade for this remote teaching stuff, right? I got a brand new i9 10900K with 64 gigs of RAM and blah blah blah, and I also had to get a 1200 watt power supply, right? So I want you to think about this: the amount of power draw and heat that is created by modern hardware. Right? And, when as a good example about this, Apple's fight with Intel, right? Here's another, kind of modern story or kind of current event. Apple basically kind of said in their WWDC in June this year, their Worldwide Developer Conference, that guess what? We're not going to be using Intel architecture after about 2 years from now. We're going to move away from Intel architecture in our devices, and we're going to go towards an ARM-based silicon. We're going to make our own silicon. It's going to be ARM-based. We're going to move away from Intel. And why? Because Intel is holding them back. And a good example of that is their Tiger Lake processors that have just been announced for mobile, right? These things have been delayed, and their desktop processors, their 11th generation processors that are supposed to be out actually now in this season, they're not out yet because they have quality control problems, right? Intel has been plagued with these problems. And why? It's the x86 architecture, my friends. I know. Look, I like AMD too. And from a gaming perspective, it's the ease of entry if you're going to go into AMD because you can buy, a machine's going to be lower cost. the heat is going to be lower, the power drain is going to be lower. And look, both Xbox Series X and the PS5 has chosen to go with Team Red over Team Blue, right? And the reason for this is because of these problems that Intel has, and even NVIDIA. NVIDIA is an interesting company. They've just announced their 3000 GPU cards. So we're talking about the RTX 3 series, right, which are brand new cards that have just come out. And I'm really super excited about the RTX 3070. It looks like it's going to be 40 to 50% faster than the RTX 2080 Ti. And you're like, what do these numbers mean, Tom? It means that hardware's come out that is better every year. Yay, I like that. But on the downside, what it means for smart devices, smartphone devices, and smaller devices is we're still locked into this lower configuration setting, right? This setting where we have less memory, and when you run a game that takes a lot of power draw, for example, a 3D game on some of your iPhones, I don't know if you've ever tried that lately, your iPhone can get, or your Android device can get really hot. Why? Because that processor is singing to try and make this work for you. There are limitations on what we can do still. And as things move forward, those limitations will be slowly removed because our handheld devices are getting more and more powerful. Okay? But we also still, up to this point, that's why I'm bringing all this up, we still have to consider the hardware limitations that are we're going to be faced with when we're doing any kind of mobile development. Hardware limitations in terms of screen size, memory, CPU, storage space, and all kinds of other things. I know, I feel bad for those 20 Ti owners too. They spent $2,000, and maybe some of them just recently, and now the 3070 came out. It's $400 US, and it's 40% to 50% faster. Whew, can't wait. Let's continue with the other problem with hardware limitations. We have this idea of hardware variability. That's another issue, where we just talked about there's lots of different devices out there, different iPhone devices, different iPads, different size of viewports, different capabilities, and there's limitations there too, right? Because some devices are not as capable, I'm talking about hardware, not software, to handle what you're going to try and do for that kind of game or the interface. Sometimes it's not just the speed that we're talking about and the memory, but also the touch responsiveness. Maybe you want multi-touch on a game that maybe is not available on some other, some older devices. And that means that you have to account for that in your design if you want backwards compatibility, if you want a larger audience. So that's kind of the space that we're talking about. But what about our other player in the marketplace, the Switch, right? And we've been talking about this, for a while. The Switch is kind of brand new, relatively. And instead of 2007, it came out 10 years later. 10 years after the iPhone and the Android devices have come out, Switch comes out. And Switch presents a new user story, a new user scenario, a portable console, right? I can do my gaming on a Switch, and I can play any kind of game I want. I'm not limited in terms of my hardware, right? And there are some limitations there too, but I can play a lot of cool games, right, that are not available on iPhones and Android devices. Now, you might argue that there's other cloud-based services like a Microsoft xCloud, xDrive, as well as Google Stadia and all kinds of other stuff that's coming out from Amazon and other players that are going to be streaming services for games. And you might say, well, you know what? We won't even need a lot of hardware. We're going to use our view screen for our mobile device, and we're going to use the hardware that's in the cloud, right? But that has dependencies, and one of those, and I don't know if you've played Stadia lately. I have. I subscribe to it, but I find that there's a bit of delay sometimes, right? Depending on where you are, how good your internet connection is, and so on. I mean, it's just like anyone would think. If you don't have a stable connection, or if you're on the road, Stadia, I'm not sure I would recommend it at this point, right? I'm not saying it's not good, but the Nintendo Switch, presents another opportunity, another mobile user story where I have a smaller screen, but I'm able to use traditional inputs from a console. Now, these little nunchuck type controllers on the sides. I mean, a lot of people who've been using them stop using them, and they favor the Pro controller. I agree. I also do that. So maybe you have to bring your Pro controller along with your Nintendo Switch. And over the course of COVID, I mean, you couldn't even find one of these things at all. It wasn't just not available. So whether it's this one or the Lite, they were just always out of stock. Why? Super popular, and they're super portable, and you can take them anywhere. You can take them to the cottage. You can ride with them in a car and have a console experience, right? Anywhere you want. So how did this happen? Well, they're cashing in on their Nintendo IP. That's different. That's a different thing than, let's say, an open app store like Apple's or Android's, right? They're cashing in on Legend of Zelda, on Mario, on Pokemon, on all these awesome games. And the number one game is Mario Kart 8, by the way, right? Which is at the top of the pile, right? So, I mean, this is what Nintendo has going for it. It's IP. No one can match Nintendo for its intellectual property. Nobody, right? Not Sony, not Microsoft, not any other vendor out there. So how about developing on the Switch? Can we develop on the Switch? Which is an issue. And the answer is it's not easy. You can sign up for to be a Nintendo developer, absolutely, and you can develop easily on the 3DS or on the Wii U. Sign up today. You have access to do that. You can download those SDKs and get going on them right away. But on the Switch, you got to ask permission. You got to prove kind of what you've been doing in the past. You can apply to be to develop on the Switch, and they may or may not accept you. And why? Because they want to control who develops stuff on the Switch. And I think it's a good idea what they're doing. For us, though, it presents a bit of an obstacle because when we sign up, we have to, kind of put some stuff together. So I started the sign-up process when I started this course. It's taken some time, and my hope is by next semester in part 2 of this course, with support of our George Brown School, we'll be able to get access to the SDK for the Switch so we can use Unity to develop on it. And that would be an awesome kind of extension to this course, making it almost like a console course. All right, so that's the way I look at it. Yeah, I know there's a lot of shovelware, but let's get back to this. So that's kind of the user story that we're talking about right now. I also wanted to present with you some information. One of the things that I like looking at is some analysis that we have up here. So here's some analysis, and I know Kat's going to jump all over me on this, but because we're going to talk about women a second. But here's something. I know, Kat, don't jump on me yet. Don't jump on me. Here's how I go. So there's some stats from 2018. Okay, so we have to respect that this is where it comes from. But this is the latest stats we have online about gamers in Canada. Okay, so this is a good thing. If you go up to this website, which I think is a good website, Entertainment Software Association of Canada. It's specific to us, so it's contextual for us. It's not speaking about the States, which is good. And I think the idea and the trends that they talk about here are continuing. I don't think they're slowing down or they're off base in any way. So here's something that they talk about. In 2018, they said that 61% of Canadians define themselves as a gamer. All right, and that's up 24% year over year. That's pretty awesome. And then, obviously, 50% of gamers identifying as female, and 50% of gamers identify as male, right? This is good. This is awesome, because this was not the split before at all. It wasn't 50-50 at all before. It was something else. That means more than, now for sure, especially during COVID, more than 23 million Canadians identify themselves as gamers, right? So how does that affect us? Well, let's look at a user story of a boomer, all right? Someone who is 55 to 64. 58% of female people who identify as female boomer gamers most often play games on their mobile device. That's the statistic. Now, do we know that that's true? I mean, this is one source. We have to be careful where we get our sources and stuff like this. But I think the idea here is that they're on a mobile device, right? That means 50% of the 50% who are women, that's what it means, who are in the 55 to 64% category, people who identify as women, play on their mobile device, 58%. That means that there is a lot of millions of people, right, that play on their mobile devices. There's a big market for this, and this is between 55 and 64. Okay. And what did they play? They play puzzle games most often. Puzzle games. Remember, there's the 3 games we're going to be talking about this semester are puzzle games. We're going to be talking about some kind of scrolling game, and the other one is a platformer. Those are the 3 most popular games, I would say, that are not social games, like real-time strategy games or gambling kind of games, which is also very popular out there as well. But those 3 big sections are the kind of games that most people play. One of those 3. Some kind of puzzle, some kind of platformer, right? And maybe some real-time strategy game. All right, so whereas 46% of male boomer gamers, people who identify as male, right, often play games on their computer. So they're computer gamers, right? So that's a kind of a different things. And also, 31% of male boomer gamers most often play card games. Like I said, some kind of puzzle game, card game, traditional kind of gambling thing. So I'm presenting this to you to kind of frame the marketplace a little bit. Okay, let's go into a little bit younger. 35 to 54. Again, 31% of Gen Xers are said to play consoles. All right, which is interesting. They're more on consoles than anything else. Right. 61% of female Gen Xers, right, people who identify as female, play on their mobile device. Again, so think about that. 50% of people identifying as female play games. 61% of those who are in the ages of 35 to 54 are on mobile again, right? So that's interesting. That there's that much in mobile, and more on mobile than on desktop, more on mobile than on consoles, and a lot of them like to play solo, as opposed to being more social in this category. And you can read the report. I put it up on Blackboard for you. But I think what I'm trying to convey and trying to communicate to you is that there's a great market for mobile. And I believe it's even increased since COVID, right? And I think you might agree with me, right? You've probably been playing more games, as an example, since COVID than ever, right? And I think the reason why this is happening is because we're at home, right? Look, I bet you some of you are playing games right now listening to me, right? Hey, I do the same thing when I'm in meetings. I'm distracted. We're distracted kind of people. It's just the way it is, right? And you know what? Mobile games, here's the user story. Quick games that can end in 5 minutes. If I'm standing in line or doing something, or if I'm bored at the dinner table, I want to be able to complete my game in like 5 or 10 minutes. If it's longer than that, you know what? Chances are I'm just, somewhere where I'm not in a console. It's just easy access. That's what it's got to be. A pick up and play kind of game. That's important. But if it's something really more involved that requires highfalutin graphics, I'm going to do it on my console or my computer. Okay? Or the Switch. Right? Because that is definitely an option. So that's what I wanted to present to you. So there's some great stats here. From your theoretical test, I want you to look at some of these stats and understand broad strokes. Okay, I don't expect you to know all the little niggly numbers, although it's going to be an open book test anyway. Okay, I don't expect you to remember anything, but you should understand that. Hey, if I was going to look at a persona like Juliet, who's 17, she's considered a teen gamer, then you should be able to look at this page and go, for the most part, she's going to game on a mobile device. Chances are, right? Because 53% or so this source tells us, right? 53% or more now after COVID is chances are they're going to game on a mobile device, which means there's a great opportunity for us as indie developers and a great, good reasons, a lot of good reasons to make mobile games. In fact, the mobile game market, mobile apps, for games specifically, are the highest grossing and the most paid apps on any store, whether it's on the App Store for Apple or Google Play. Those apps rake in more money in one blow, especially with in-app purchases and everything else, than any other kind of app that's out there. Okay? Again, there's other apps out there too. Subscription apps obviously can get a lot of money that way too. But for the most part, games are the way we can make our money on the App Store more than anything else. Which makes sense then, if I'm going to make a game, to make it write once, deploy everywhere. Okay. All right, questions, comments, thoughts around this? I know there's a lot of games, Lawrence, for sure. Here, Steam, all these different stores that are out now. How about some thoughts? Daniel, tell me. Maybe Daniel.
Hi there.
Hey, how you doing?
Can you hear me? Yeah. I'm good, I'm good. Well, I was listening to what you said about games being the most used
Yep.
in the mobile nowadays.
Yep.
And I kind of agree because nowadays everybody just like waiting on a line on a queue
Yep.
and just playing a very quick game.
For sure, and that's one of the scenarios, right?
Yeah.
Where you're bored. And look, my son tells me, thanks, Daniel. My son tells me things like, "Hey, Dad, I'm bored." I'm bored, Dad. I'm bored. All the time, he's bored, right? And why is he bored? Because he wants to download a new game, and he wants more money to buy a new game, a new purchase, new app stuff, whatever. And why? Because he's bored. He wants to play something quick, something else to distract him, right? So I totally agree with you. All right. Thank you for that, Daniel.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Riding on the TTC. Yeah, if the TTC is going to survive, sure, right? I'm a little bit concerned as we go forward with the way things are going with commuting. A lot of people don't like to ride the TTC anymore. They're afraid, right, because of COVID. And public transit in general has really suffered a big one. But if you're going to ride, yeah, sure. I mean, you want to go between stations instead of staring off into space or looking at, people on the train or on the bus, play a game. I love it. So I'm getting another comment that says, mobile games are always convenient and easily accessible because everyone has a phone, but not everyone has a console or PC or TV. But a lot more people have mobile devices, which allows easy fix. I agree with that. And that's the difference between, I'm not going to put a Switch in my pocket. Chances are, all right? I might travel around with my Switch, but somehow or another, I treat my Switch better than my $1,000 phone. My Switch doesn't cost as much as my phone, but but if I drop my phone, something God forbid happens to my phone, it's probably like $500-$600 to replace, right? My Switch, maybe it costs $350, $400, whatever it is now, right? It's not as much, but I take care of it. Oh, that Switch has got to be in its case, right? So yeah, what else we have here? More seats for me. Yeah, I like that. I've lost my travel time to school to play the Switch. I agree. The Joy-Cons are pretty delicate, like we said. That's why I like to use the Pro Controller, right, over the Joy-Cons. But that's what happens. So what happens is, we have this travel scenario. So we're traveling. Here's the scenarios, guys. We're traveling. We're standing in line. We're bored at the dinner table. We're bored listening to our friend on the phone. We're bored listening to our professor. We need distraction. We're going to play. And where are we going to do it? On our mobile devices, which means that's a great market for someone who is, an entrepreneur who wants to make little mobile games, and they're easier to make than larger games. Think about the larger games that have been made lately. Flight Simulator comes to mind, something like 115 gigabytes download, and they can be just as, or if even more profitable than larger games because more people can buy them. And even if you have this free to own or freemium model, right, where they pick up and play your game and then, to unlock some stuff, they can pay a few dollars. If only 10% of the people pick up and play and pay that extra money and they do it one or two times, you've made your money. That's a lot of people. 10% of the mobile market is huge, right? So they also don't have buttons. Yeah. I'm just reading some of the chat here. Yeah, I agree. Playing on an iPhone on a phone is added value. And think about the unification when we get to the point where our phone is a console, and it's coming. If we can make a Switch and we can play console quality apps on a Switch, as our smartphones get smarter and better and faster, who's to say that we won't have console quality apps available on our new phones coming out. Because guess what? I'll tell you right now, Apple wants part of Nintendo's pie. They want to eat that. And so does Android. So does the entire Android ecosystem. They want to take from a Nintendo. So does Sony, right? Because you know what? If Nintendo can do it, a lot of people will think, well, so can we. Okay, I'm going to leave it there, guys. I'm going to stop recording at this point because we've talked a bit about theory and a lot about the marketplace and the course and everything else. I'm going to stop recording this one. I'm going to immediately start recording the next one, which is going to be a technical recording on what to download. So I'm going to stop now, and if you give me 5 minutes, let's take a 5-minute break while I reset everything. And when we come back, we'll get into the technical requirements, what we're going to have for this course. Okay? So I'm going to stop recording now.